Good evening and welcome to another episode of our Climate Reality. This week we're talking climate change and water. Of course, a very important subject. In fact, without water, we all know what can happen. And tonight we will look into the impact that climate change can have on our water supply. This evening we have with us Dr. Adrian Cashman, Dr. Everson Peters, and Mr. Terrence Smith. A little later on, they'll tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get into our discussion for this evening. Climate change impacts the world's water in complex ways. It is already affecting water access for people around the world, causing more severe droughts and floods. Increasing global temperatures are one of the main contributors to this problem. Climate change impacts the water cycle by influencing when, where, and how much precipitation falls. It also leads to more severe weather events over time. Increasing global temperatures cause water to evaporate in larger amounts, which will lead to higher levels of atmospheric water vapor and more frequent, heavy, and intense rains in coming years. According to Manu Lal, director of the Columbia Water Center, most of the climate change impacts come down to water. When people talk about climate change affecting agricultural output, sea level rise, wildfires, and extreme weather, they're all essentially a water story. When we come back, we get into our discussion this evening. We'll be back in a moment.
You're watching Our Climate Reality on GBN Television, brought to you in part by Republic Bank Limited, Hubbards, and Classic Lighting. Hello, Grenada. It's TGIF time again with the NLA. Thank goodness it's Friday. Every Friday in March, place 5 bets or more in a single ticket purchase on Cash 4, Pick 3, or Play Away. You automatically receive a quick pick inline ticket valued at $1. NLA is giving back more plays, more chances, more opportunities, and more prizes. Remember, when you play, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building. Promotion ends March 31st. You must be 18 years and over to participate.
Good evening and welcome. It's time for the National Lottery Authority's daily Pick 3 evening draw for today, Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. I'm Lexan Fletcher and I'll be your draw hostess this evening. Joining me is Ms. Giselle Alexander. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Of course, she's here to ensure the games for this evening are conducted in a fair and accountable manner, that the game balls have not been tampered with and are within industry standards. Here's a quick reminder, as always, with the Pick 3 game, you can bet as little as $1 on inline, mix, and pair tickets, and for $2 on backup tickets. All right, let's find out what the winning numbers will be for this evening. It pays to play. Good luck. All right, check your tickets. First number is, first number 1. Second number 0, final. Final number is 5. All right, let's recap. First number was 1, second number 0, third and final 5. Congratulations to you if you're a winner this evening. Congrats also to our winners from the midday draw. We had a total of 33 winners. The total payout, $5,540. Congratulations to you all again. Do stay tuned. We've got the Playway draw coming up next. See you soon.
Do you know when you play the games of the National Lotteries Authority, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique.
Hi, I am Junior Murray, cricket coach, sports enthusiast, and a former West Indies cricketer. I endorse the games of the NLA 100%. For the past 40 years, the NLA has been funding many sporting activities, including competition for schools and clubs, and for athletes to participate in overseas tournaments such as the Carifta Games and regional cricket tournaments. Additionally, they made it possible for you, the public, to view local, regional, and international tournaments from the comfort of your homes. For those reasons, I play the game of the NLA. Even if I do not win, I know Grenada always wins.
Yes, when you play all the games, the NLA in turn supports sports, culture, and nation-building activities throughout the Tri-Island state.
Welcome back. It's time for the Playway Draw for this evening, Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. Joining me once again is Miss Giselle Alexander. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Just to remind you, with the Playway game, all you got to do is bet as little as $1 up to $10 or in increments on any number or dream symbol of your choice and get to win 24 times the amount you bet. That's $24 for every dollar spent. Let's find out what the winning Playway number will be for this evening. Value your dreams, win your way with Playway. Good luck. Winning Playway number is this evening's winning Playway number is 8. That's 088, and the dream symbol is spider. Just to repeat tonight's winning Playway number, that number is 8088. The dream symbol is spider. Congratulations if you're a winner this evening. Congrats to our winners from the midday draw as well. We had a total of 206 winners. The total payout $20,736. Congratulations again. We've got the cash flow draw coming up next. Get your tickets out. Be ready for that. See you then.
Hello, Grenada. It's TGIF time again with the NLA. Thank goodness it's Friday. Every Friday in March, place 5 bets or more in a single ticket purchase on Cash 4, Pick 3, or Play Away. You automatically receive a quick pick inline ticket valued at $1. NLA is giving back more plays, more chances, more opportunities, and more prizes. Remember, when you play, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building. Promotion ends March 31st. You must be 18 years and over to participate.
We are back this time with the daily cash flow draw for this evening, Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. Of course, joining me once again is Ms. Giselle Alexander. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Now, don't forget, with the cash flow game, you can bet as little as $1 on most of the bet types, with the exception of backup, in which case you bet $2. All right, let's find out what the winning numbers will be for this evening. It's more plays, bigger prizes. Good luck. First number 9, second number 3, third number 6, final number is 9. Let's recap. First number up was 9, the second number 3, third number up was 6, and the fourth and final 9. Congratulations to all our winners. Of course, if you've just won, congrats to you. Congrats also to our midday winners. We had a total of 14 winners. The total payout $3,050. Congratulations again. Guess what? We're not done just yet. We've got the lotto draw coming up later on. The estimated jackpot is $40,000. We'll see you then.
Do you know, when you play the games of the National Lotteries Authority, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique?
Hi, I am Junior Murray, cricket coach, sports enthusiast, and a former West Indies cricketer. I endorse the games of the NLA 100%. For the past 40 years, the NLA has been funding many sporting activities, including competition for schools and clubs, and for athletes to participate in overseas tournaments such as the Goddfrey Games and the regional cricket tournaments. For those reasons, I play the game of the NLA. Even if I do not win, I know Grenada always wins.
Yes, when you play all the games, the NLA in turn supports sports, culture, and nation-building activities throughout the Tri-Island state.
Good evening and welcome back. It's time for the National Lottery Authority's Lottotron number 3484 for this evening, Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. The estimated jackpot for this evening is $40,000. Joining me once again is Mr. Sel Alexander. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. All right, firstly, let's find out what the free ticket letter will be for this evening. If you got your tickets, good luck. The free ticket letter for this evening is G as in gold. That's G as in gold. It's time to find out what the 5 winning numbers will be for $40,000. Once again, if you got your tickets, best of luck to you. First number is... First number is 4. Second number 2. Third number 13. Fourth number 14, and the final number is 32. All right, let's recap, double check your tickets. Let's start firstly with the free ticket letter. That letter was G as in gold. That's G as in gold. And the 5 winning numbers, reminding you again, the jackpot for this evening is $40,000. First number up, 4044. Second number, 2022. The third number, 1313. Fourth number, 141414. And the final was 32. That's 3232. Well, if you have these numbers, congratulations to you. This has been Lotto. Play and win a lot. Reminding you, we're here tomorrow morning, so get your tickets then and do continue to support sports, culture, and nation building. Have a good night.
Hello, Grenada. It's TGIF time again with the NLA. Thank goodness it's Friday. Every Friday in March, place 5 bets or more in a single ticket purchase on Cash 4, Pick 3, or Play Away. You automatically receive a quick pick inline ticket valued at $1. NLA is giving back more plays, more chances, more opportunities, and more prizes. Remember, when you play, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building. Promotion ends March 31st. You must be 18 years and over to participate.
Building or renovating your home or business? Why not use clean, renewable energy? Install solar panels to power your home and office and see your energy costs go down and your savings go up. Using renewable solar-powered energy protects our environment, reduces our carbon footprint, and slows the devastating impact of climate change. Republic Bank can help to finance construction and renovations that make use of renewable energy. Visit any Republic Bank branch and ask about renewable energy financing options today.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Welcome back. This evening we're discussing climate change and water. Before we get into that, let's invite our guests to just briefly introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them. And we'll start with Dr. Cashman. Dr. Cashman, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me on your program. It's a great privilege. Just a little bit about myself. Well, the first thing is that you may not guess, but I actually grew up in the Caribbean. I actually lived in Jamaica for the first few years of my life. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I've been coming back to the Caribbean the last 16 years, working with the University of the West Indies in Barbados, where I was responsible for a water resources management program with the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies. And since then, since leaving then, I'm now the chair of the Global Water Partnership Caribbean Technical Committee. So all my life I've worked in water, so this is very much up my street. And I also have I would say I know Grenada reasonably well. So that's just enough for me, I think, for the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Peters, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, let me say, I'm from Carriacou, and the experiences in Carriacou, I believe, is what motivated me to be in the area of water. I have formal training in education, agricultural engineering, and water resources engineering. I've worked at the university teaching in the area of water resources and environmental engineering. And so, I'm Carriacouan.
Right. Yes. Very good, and I'm quite happy. Usually when things happen on the mainland, you rarely hear about Carriacou, so I'm really delighted to have you on the program with us. Terry, good evening. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, good night, Godfrey, and good night to your listeners and viewers. Unlike my colleagues, I did not teach at a university. I went to a university. I'm by profession a civil and sanitary engineer, and I call myself also a water engineer, water and wastewater. And I call it my first career was at the National Water and Sewage Authority, NAWASA, where I was for about 13 years. And for the last 20 odd years, I've been an independent consultant working in the field of water and the environment for my company, TP Smith Engineering. So I've been involved in water, various aspects of water, water resources, water management since the mid-1980s. Quite a long time.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen, and of course to our listeners on GBN Television, K105 FM, and our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. We thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I'm sure from listening to our guests, you do realize that they're very versed in the topic, and we will be learning quite a lot from them this evening. So tonight we're talking climate change and water, and the impacts climate change can have on this very, very important resource. We're going to start with Dr. Cashman. Dr. Cashman, let's talk a little bit about the impact of climate change on the water cycle. Let's put it into context.
Right. That's a great place to start. When we talk about climate change, what we're really talking about when it comes down to it is like changings of temperatures. And when we think about the effects of climate change on water, our minds immediately go to changes in rainfall. And yes, that is important, but one of the things that we may not think about is the impact that increased temperatures actually have on rainfall and on the water cycle. Because what that is doing is that heat is sort of supercharging the water cycle. So things sort of speed up and we get a lot more variability coming in. But I want to focus a little bit on one of the other aspects of temperature's impact. As we get hotter temperatures, it heats up the soil. You may say, so what? But what happens is that it bakes the soil so that when we do start to have rainfall, and we get quite heavy rainfall, because the soil is baked, it starts to run off. It's a bit like it being turned into concrete. So what does that mean? It means that we get a lot of runoff and we don't get that water soaking into the ground, which is actually where we want it to be if we want plants to grow, if we want our aquifers to be recharged, and to release that water slowly, because increased runoff gives rise to flash flooding. And that is something we really, really don't want. It also means that we increase erosion, soil gets washed away, we lose precious topsoil. So there are a lot of impact that just that increase in temperature. And in fact, if you look at some of the modeling that is done, it's really, and we see a decrease in our water resources. Often, it's the impact of the increased temperatures and evapotranspirations and changes in the landscape that are as important as the changes in rainfall themselves. So there's other things that I could talk about, like the increasing bushfires. That also tends to bake the soil. You get a lot of ash laid down on the soil. And when you get rainfall, you get all that mobilized and it contaminates or pollutes some of those, our surface waters. So those are just a little bit, a tip of the iceberg, if you like. And maybe I'll stop there for a moment and, you know.
Right. I want to invite Dr. Peters to comment a little bit on, you know, you heard what Dr. Cashman said. Can you comment a bit on it?
I think what Adrian just said is extremely important. Sometimes we overlook the impact of temperature. But overall, I think what we are seeing in Grenada, remember Grenada is like a dot, even within the Caribbean. And most of the work that has been done in terms of modeling future impact of climate change really doesn't necessarily capture Grenada per se. Mm-hmm. But we have been observing some trends here. For example, probably 7, 8 years ago, I did some analysis on the severity of dry season and droughts. And what we found was they're becoming more regular, right? They're becoming more regular. Mm-hmm. And of course, that is part from increased temperatures, as Adrian explained. So that we expect, the trend is that we expect in the Southern Caribbean that we would have more intense rains. So the rainfall would be more intense. And how does that impact on our water supply? Well, if the rainfall is more intense, and as Adrian explained, if there is less opportunity for water to penetrate the soil, then you have higher runoff. And so that immediately after some rainstorms, you plan the rivers high, but thereafter it goes back to a trickle. And that has implication for Nawasa, for storage. More than that, as Adrian did say, there is increased evapotranspiration. Well, that too reduces the stream flow. It impacts on agriculture. But something that is very interesting in terms of a trend, many years ago, probably 50, 60 years ago, maybe a little more, there were a number of dog wells around Carriacou. Mm-hmm. With climate change and with coastal erosion, over time, we have been finding that the water in those wells are becoming saltier. So they become useless. In fact, in growing up, during the dry season, you cherish those wells to water your animals. But there is now a challenge that the water has become so heavy that even the animals refuse to drink it. So these are some of the impacts and the trend. So the trend really is, in terms of saltwater intrusion, for example, the Bailey's Bacolet borehole is likely to become less useful over time. Mm-hmm. That's a trend. Yeah? I don't know if Terence wants to add anything to this.
Terence, just before you come in, I want to ask you, you mentioned that the wells in Carriacou, they've become salty, and even the animals are refusing to drink. Why is that happening? Okay. How is it getting saltier?
Okay, so there are two things. One, the water table is coastal, close to the coast, because you know Carriacou is an island and there's limited flatlands close to the sea. So as you get coastal erosion and as you have sea level rise, the salt water pushes under the fresh water. We don't see it, but the physically pushes, and it pushes the fresh water backwards. Now, so it bypasses the wells where the wells were. So the salt water now moves and past the well and goes further inland, and so that there is greater opportunity for the mixing of the seawater and the freshwater lens that is floating on top of it.
Okay, interesting. Terry?
Yes.
Well, in terms of the projections, what is likely to happen in the future, along the lines of what Adrian and Everson referred to, I'd speak first to the reduction in the mean annual rainfall. So in the CARICOM region, the leading research group is at Mona, University of the West Indies, Mona in Jamaica. They refer to as the Mona Climate Studies Group. And they report on conduct research and report on it internationally. So they have predicted that there's likely to be up to a 6% reduction in the mean annual rainfall in Grenada up to the 2060s, thereabouts, right? So in the next 30 odd years, 30 to 40 years, right? What this means is that, of course, there'd be reduced river flows. So Adrian and Everson have referred to heavy rainfall episodes, flashy rivers, siltation, and so forth. But the mean average when you average it out over the year, it would be less rainfall, right? Up to 6% by the 2060s. So it means that there would be reduced river flows. That will result in increased concentration of pollution. So whatever pollutants that you had going in, whether it's from runoff, from farms, from garages, the various sources of pollution. With reduced flows, you would have increased concentrations, right? And in turn, this would have implications for public health, right? Secondly, I can refer to the warming, the so-called, as they call it, global warming. It is predicted for Grenada and the Southern Caribbean an increase of up to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the 2050s, all right? And this is predicted to lead to increased concentrations of pathogens, harmful microorganisms in our rivers and streams and so forth, which again has serious implications for public health, increased risk of disease, etc. With respect to the sea level rise, it's predicted that there would be a 0.38 meter, which is about 15 inches, about, just to demonstrate, about this 15 inches increase in sea level, right? Up to 2065. Again, this will have, as far as, it would have implications for the built infrastructure. Significant parts of our towns and developments and so on are on the coast, as referred to earlier on. As far as water resources is concerned, the main implication is what Everson just referred to, the encroachment of the seawater, freshwater interface, what is referred to as saline intrusion, inland, thereby impacting the dog wells in Carriacou that are used for watering animals traditionally, and the few wells that Nawassa has on the southeast coast of Grenada generally, which provides, I'm not sure what it is now, but it could be like 8 or 9 or maybe 10% of Grenada's water supply, and particularly more so in the dry season. So these are some of the significant, with respect to hurricanes, it is predicted that there is likely to be little change in the number of tropical storms and hurricanes, but it's predicted that there's likely to be an 80% increase in Category 4 and Category 5 hurricanes, which again has implications. Well, you can't really tell Grenadians much about hurricanes. We all know the implications for the water sector would be damage and destruction to the physical infrastructure of primarily of the water supply in Nawassa, but also in terms of like farms and so on, farmers who have irrigation infrastructure. So all water-related infrastructure would be at risk. So that is a quick summary of what is likely to happen going forward for not just like our generation, but going forward for the rest of the century.
Right, thank you. Dr. Cashman, anything you want to add before we go to the break?
Yes, I would actually. I want to pick up on a point that both Everson and Terence have mentioned. Let's look at the dry season and what happened. You might, dry season means we're not getting much rain, and yet most of the streams and rivers are still running. And so you could ask yourself the question, well, where is that water coming from? Well, it's being released from the groundwater aquifers. Now, if we get less rainfall, if we get more flashier, intense rainfall with runoff, what it means is that recharge that takes place during the rainy season is not going to be replenishing those aquifers at the time when you have the water. And therefore, it's not available to be released slowly during the dry season. That has implications for the volume of water in the rivers and streams. Now, these are really important because that's where we get our water from throughout the year. So if as we look to the future, if we're not getting the recharge of the groundwater, if we're having less water in our streams, that has a very serious implication for our ability to meet water demand and water consumption. So that's just another aspect of climate change and the changes in climate.
Right, thank you. Terry, I want to come back to you regarding a point you made about the mean rainfall. There seems to be an apparent contradiction because, all three of you mentioned, yes, we will be getting heavier rains, So if we're getting heavier rains, why then the annual mean will decrease?
Yeah, I know it's counterintuitive, right? The prediction is for up to a 6% reduction in the mean annual rainfall up to the 2060s, right? That is when you average it out over the year. But the prediction is for heavier episodes of rainfall. Yeah, so when the rainfall, there'll be very, very heavy, perhaps short, very heavy showers, but you'll also have longer dry periods.
Okay.
So when you average it out over the year, it is less rainfall, less absolute rainfall over the year, right? Predicted to be up to 6% in the next 40 years or so. But heavier, sharper, shorter showers, right, which are not good. And longer, drier spells.
Okay.
Longer, dry, yeah.
Or, simply put, rainier but shorter rainy seasons and drier, longer, dry seasons.
Okay, wonderful. Dr. Peters, anything?
No, I think Terence has handled it well, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So what we're going to do, we take a commercial break. When we come back, we will look at, addressing this whole issue of climate change and its impact on water. We'll be back in a moment, folks. Stay with us.
Whether you're shopping for hardware, building materials, and appliances, Hubbard's Building Supplies at Grand Anse is the place to shop. With improved facilities, increased parking, wider variety of products, and a trendy and spacious layout, catering for all your shopping needs. Why wait? Visit Hubbard's Building Supplies today. Now open Mondays to Fridays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
Grenada's premier junior track and field event is here again with a bang. The Republic Bank Intercall Schools Championship is back at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. You cannot miss the intense rivalry amongst all secondary schools, athletes on the track and in the field. You will not forgive yourself if you miss this. The Republic Bank 2023 Intercall. Day 1, 2, and 3. The 55th Intercall Championship takes place on March 28th, 29th, and 30th, with each day starting at 9 a.m. and ending at 6. Be there to experience the special attractions and surprises. Main Pavilion, Day 1, $15. Day 2, $20. Day 3, $30. Season tickets, $60. Secondary stands, Day 1, $10. Day 2, $15. Day 3, $25. Bleachers, Day 1, $5. Day 2, $10. And Day 3, $15. Season tickets, $25. Children under 12, $15 Main Pavilion and $5 Secondary Pavilion. Let us celebrate the return of 3 days of Republic Bank Intercall in all its glory at the 55th Intercall Athletic Meet 2023 at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Bring your school, bring your past student, bring your family to 3 days of competitive track and field. You will not forget this one. Be there.
Solar Vision is the champion. We lighten up the whole Caribbean. Solar Vision is the champion. We lighten the whole Caribbean. The ultimate solution to get rid of pollution. We going green to be healthy. Going green for security. Going green for prosperity. Going green with Solar Vision. We going green.
Available at Grenada Trade Center, Montrouge, St. George. For more information, call 444-5291 or 404-9012.
Welcome back, everyone. It's our climate reality. We're looking at climate change and the impacts on water. Of course, we all know how very important water is to human life, right? Not just human, but plant life as well. Without water, we get a major problem on our hand. Gentlemen, we've looked at a number of very important issues there. I think we've, put it very nicely so that we can now look at what needs to be done. Clearly, there is a problem. We'll be having less rain, and Terry explained it well. So I think it's safe to say we'll be having less rain. Longer dry spells, and that can be a problem for a number of things. It can impact our food security, can impact a number of things. Gentlemen, and I'm going to start with you, Terry, this time. What do we need to do at this stage? Now, President Obama said that this generation is the first to experience the effects of climate change, and we are the last generation to do something about it. What needs to be done?
Yeah, well, Goddfrey.
And we can take it in strides, yes.
I would, the question could also have been posed, what are we doing? Right? Mm-hmm. Let me just go back a bit. Around about 5 years ago, about 2017, right? The government of Grenada sought funding assistance from the German development agency GIZ, or GIZ, some people refer to it as, and developed a water sector, a water and climate change or a water or climate change adaptation for the water sector type project, and submitted that project to the Green Climate Fund, the GCF. And I believe it was in early 2018, Grenada became the second CARICOM country to have a GCF project approved. The project is now 3 years old in implementation. It is halfway through. It's a 6-year project. And that project runs from 2019, or is running from 2019, and it ends, I believe, at the end of 2025. So it's just past the halfway stage. It's called, the acronym that is used is the G-CREWS. G for Grenada, CREWS, and that is the acronym for the Grenada Climate Resilient Water Sector. All right? Resilience, simply put, means ensuring that the water sector is put in a better place, is better positioned to withstand the negative or adverse impacts of climate change, which we spoke about in the first slot of this program. You with me?
Yes.
So hence the G-CREWS. The G-CREWS is by far the largest investment that would ever have been made in Grenada's water sector. It's about $135 million. That's 135 million EC dollars, about 42 million US dollars, 135 million EC dollars, to be spent over, as I said, a 6-year period, of which we're halfway there. It's financed by largely by the Green Climate Fund, as I indicated, but also by the German government and the government of Grenada. And it's executed by the Grenada Development Bank, GDB, the Ministry of Finance, or Government of Grenada, and GIZ. So that is, in a nutshell, what an overview of the G-CREWS project. The overall objective of the project, I just emphasize again, is to ensure that in a systematic way, climate resilience is built into Grenada's water sector. And by water sector here, we're referring not just to, people think of, drinking water, the water that you get from Nawassa. But the water sector is defined in Grenada for our purposes here and for the purposes of this G-CREWS project. We're talking about water for human consumption. We're talking about water for agriculture, so irrigation water. We're talking about water for industry, if some particular industry may dig a well and be using it in their manufacturing process or whatever. We're talking about water for tourism. Yeah, we're talking about water for recreation. Yeah, so people having a line by the river on a weekend or at any point in time or whatever it is, if there's no water flowing in the river, it's not the same thing as having a line by a flowing river.
That's
with
right.
me? River tubing, caught on in Grenada over the last couple of years. So that these encompass what we refer to as water for entertainment and so forth. And finally, but also very importantly, water for nature. Because if the streams and rivers dry up, the ecosystem or the ecosystems that depend on this running water will die. So the flora and the fauna will die, and that would have, again, negative implications for Grenada's biodiversity, or the spread of flora and fauna, this animal life and plant life and so on, right? So the objective, to repeat, is to ensure that there's resilience built into Grenada's water sector. If I can just give a quick overview as to some of the components of the J-Cruise project, and roughly, some of the things that have been done so far. So the J-Cruise project has 5 components. I'll focus mainly on the first 3 components. Component 1 is referred to as the climate resilient water governance. And of course, governance here, we're referring here to the laws and the regulations and the institutions and so on that are set up to ensure that the water sector is properly run and administered, right, and managed. So the major element of this component 1, climate resilient water governance, is the establishment and functioning of a water resources management unit. I'll just mention it here, and I believe Everson can go into further details. And then there's another component that looks at mainstreaming of climate resilience in water-related sectors. And of course, mainstreaming is another popular, popular word, buzzword nowadays. It simply means ensuring that when planning and managing and implementing any activity in the water sector, that climate change impacts are recognized and climate change adaptation measures are built in to these projects and programs and activities. That's simply put, that's what mainstreaming is, right? So if I can go on to I don't know if you have any questions.
No,
or
I'm making some notes. I'll come after.
Sure. So the second component refers to the second component is climate resilient water users, right? And the main element there is the establishment of a challenge fund. It's like a revolving fund. It's called a challenge fund. And this challenge fund is administered by the Grenada Development Bank, GDB, and it's focusing on 2 sectors, the tourism sector and the agriculture sector. And simply put, this is a fund that it's, I don't recall the specifics now, but it's a largely grant funding with a small loan component that targets the hotels and farmers, and it enables them to make significant, various sizes of investments, of course, depending on the size of the enterprise, but investments in water conserving or water saving devices and equipment and so on. So you're looking at things like retrofitting. So for example, if they do not have it already, a participating hotel can have the funds to totally retrofit their toilets to the modern 1.5 gallon per flush or 1.45 gallon per flush low volume toilets that are currently available, right? Water, there's a program coming out of the United States that's referred to as WaterWise. So they refer to them as WaterWise toilets. Toilets which use much less water per flush than when we were growing up. The traditional, when you flush a toilet, the tank is, that toilet flushing for about 2 or 3 minutes and so on. That's basically wasting water. Toilets the tank used to have like 4.5 or 5.5 gallons per flush, right? So retrofitting with, you also have faucets, taps that have built-in little aerators that introduce a flow of air into the water, so it can reduce by up to 30-40% the actual water that is used. And the person using the water isn't aware that there's 30% less water coming. Because the air, there's air entrained in the water by this little aerator device that is put in. You have similarly shower heads, right? So a range of rainwater harvesting is another water-related climate change adaptation measure that is used. For the farmers, it is promoting rainwater harvesting for irrigation. and what they call, again, climate smart agriculture inputs, mainly in the area of irrigation and rainwater harvesting. So that is a quick summary. There's another element of component 2, the climate resilient water users, that refers to awareness raising, right, and education and outreach. And that is focusing on schools and various clubs like the Lions clubs and so forth, right? Component 3 is I believe is the largest component, and that is the climate resilient water supply system. As the name implies, those funds are being spent directly by the National Water and Sewage Authority, NAWASA, for several miles of water mains, water pipes, and it includes the procurement and installation of about 16 water tanks for holding fresh water, treated water, at strategic locations throughout Grenada and Carriacou, and several rainwater harvesting systems at selected participating entities. All right. Component 4 is it's additional contributions to Grenada's NDC, National Determined Contributions, which are commitments that Grenada's government, like many other governments all over the world, make to the international community for climate change adaptation measures that they will take to reduce the adverse impacts of climate change. So there we'd be looking at investments in solar PV, solar photovoltaics used by NAWASA to reduce their energy consumption for water production. That's some of. I don't think that element has reached very far. And then the last component is regional learning and replication, because Grenada is the first CARICOM country to have a GCF, Green Climate Fund, funded water project. Interestingly enough, about 2 years after Grenada, the Bahamas has a very, very similar water project, right? A GCF funded water project that is remarkably similar to the components of our project. Okay. So the idea here is that, and this would come towards the end of the 6-year implementation period, articles would be written and papers would be written and information would be shared with our fellow CARICOM sister countries and so forth. Exchange of knowledge. What are the best practices? What have been the lessons learned and so forth? Sharing knowledge and information. So that in a nutshell is summarizes the components of the GCRUISE project. Right. I think I can pause there now.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you, but I want to bring in Dr. Peters. Dr. Peters, you need to come in here and add into because Terry did make mention about some units that are involved. So can you speak to that first?
Yeah. So let's start. Assuming there was no climate change in Grenada, what is the situation with our water? Well, we want to use more water because our standard of living has increased, improved. We depend on the tourism sector, which is a high use of water. So many of the farmers now have gone into irrigation. So clearly, there is some level of competition for water. Climate change has made it worse. So for example, if you go into the conference La Poterie area, where some of the young farmers are operating, there's a series of ponds that the farmers pump from. But the guy who is upstream, when he's pumping, the guy downstream can't get water. Right? So ultimately, situations like this would create conflict. So overall, if we go back to our earlier discussion, we see the potential challenges for the water availability and its use. So this thing has to be managed in some way. So I believe part of the G-Cruise project, there was some component or some element for the creation of a water resources management unit, which is intended really to manage, as it were, all the water resources from the lakes and the rivers and how people regulate how people use it. Previously, NAWASA was responsible for managing the water resources. But just like the farmers, NAWASA is also a competitor. So NAWASA cannot continue to manage a resource for which it has had a monopoly for over some time. Whereas there are new competitors, whether it's bottled water or farmers, so we must treat all of them equally and fairly. And that is where the concept of the Water Resources Management Unit comes in. It's really to regulate, well, of course, the new regulations and laws going to set the framework of the platform for managing. But the concept of management is to ensure that you can manage the competition from different interest groups and that you can ensure that you maintain the resource. So for example, somebody who has a pig farm, say upstream, and doesn't manage the wastewater after they wash down properly, would follow the water for downstream, you know? So you having a line by the river, and the pig farmer is upstream, you are lining by contaminated water. So how do we control this? You must have a system in government, the state. This unit would have the responsibility for overseeing, as it were, and implementing and policing the laws that are established for running the unit.
Right. Terry mentioned that the whole G-Cruise project is just about a little past the halfway mark. But it seems to me that from what you're saying, this management unit is not yet in place. Am I correct?
It is not. It is.
It's not yet in place.
Why not?
But over the last, now remember, actually, Everson and I were retained as consultants by GIZ, and 2019, 2020, into 2021, we would have, over a couple of years, we have been working on, well, we did an initial assignment for updating Grenada's national water policy. Grenada originally had a water policy created in 2007. But in 2007, we had only just begun to talk about climate change, and so the water policy was a bit lacking. And so built into the rationale for the G-Cruise was having an updated and modernized water policy. So we would have led the work on that assignment. There were extensive stakeholder consultations. And in December, I think it was in December 2020, the revised national water policy was approved. And that national water policy included, well, in a manner speaking, called for or made provisions for the creation of this water resources agency, right? So we did a follow-on assignment for GIZ, again with extensive consultations. We did we started with a concept paper that outlined, step by step, the rollout of an establishment of this water resources unit. Let's call it the unit, right? So, but that work would have been adversely impacted, of course, by the COVID pandemic. a lot of the work that should have been done in, face-to-face workshops and so forth had to be done, via the Zoom. And so it was adversely impacted by the pandemic. But it's reached a stage now where there have been extensive consultations, including up to just a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, this year, 2023. And it's at this stage now. So I should mention also that GIZ also hired the services of a well-known regional legal draftsperson who drafted the legislation and regulations, right, for establishing this water resources unit, and also legislation for amending the NAWASA Act, because under the NAWASA Act, as Everson indicated, NAWASA is responsible for all water resources. So they are the regulator, right? But they are also the water supplier. So they provide water services, and they are the regulator.
Yes. Okay.
The modern approach to water resources management is to separate, as Everson indicated, to separate these functions, right? So establishment of the concept, rolling out of the concept, we looked at various, the pricing, various economic scenarios. How is this entity going to, how is it going to be paid for? The idea is that it should not be a burden on the state, and it should be cognizant of the economic reality in the country.
Okay.
Right? So all of this work has been done, as I said, extensive stakeholder consultations, and with over the last few months, with the advent of the new administration in Grenada, presentations have been made from the Prime Minister, the Minister responsible for the Minister of Agriculture, and the Minister of, I'll just call it Minister of Works, among other things. The key ministries that would be responsible for ensuring, first, that this entire concept and idea and action is taken initially by the cabinet, and thereafter it would have to be, it would have to go through the Houses of Parliament. So we're at the stage now where all of the consultation and sensitization and documentation are done, and this I can add, Everson, and the water policy and the concept, they are all available. They're in the public domain. If you go on the G-Cruise website, they're available. So they're not, secret documents or anything like that. They're publicly available. So it's at the stage now where I believe the draft bills are being reviewed by the drafting unit of Legal Affairs. Of the Attorney General's chambers.
Right.
Thereafter, it is hoped that it would go to Cabinet and then go to the Houses of Parliament.
Right. So let's just take a pin there. We did take a short break. When we come back, I want to bring in Adrian, and then I have a couple more questions I would like to ask before we wrap. So we take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Building or renovating your home or business? Why not use clean, renewable energy? Install solar panels to power your home and office and see your energy costs go down and your savings go up. Using renewable solar-powered energy protects our environment, reduces our carbon footprint, and slows the devastating impact of climate change. Republic Bank can help to finance construction and renovations that make use of renewable energy. Visit any Republic Bank branch and ask about renewable energy financing options today.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Whether you're shopping for hardware, building materials, and appliances, Hubbard's Building Supplies at Grandans is the place to shop. With improved facilities, increased parking, wider variety of products, and a trendy and spacious layout, catering for all your shopping needs. Why wait? Visit Hubbard's Building Supplies today. Now open Mondays to Fridays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
Solar Vision is the champion. We're lighting up the whole Caribbean. Solar Vision is the champion. We lighting the whole Caribbean. The ultimate solution to get rid of pollution. We're going green to be healthy. Going green for security. Going green for prosperity. Going green with Solar Vision. We're going green.
Available at Grenada Trade Center, Monrouge, St. George. For more information, call 444-5291 or 404-9012.
Welcome back, everyone. It's our climate reality. We're talking water and climate change. Terry and Everson, before I come back to you, I want to bring in Adrian here. Doc, in terms of the role of citizens, because the whole issue of climate change, whether it be the impacts on water, on health, on agriculture, whatever, individual, the citizenry, they do have a role to play. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have two roles really as citizens. First of all, we have a role to interact with our providers, with people like Nawasa, with our politicians, to make our voices heard. That this is what we want. This is the future that we want to see and want to see for our children. So there's on that level. So, but we can't leave it all in the hands of somebody else. Each of us have a responsibility to conserve water, to make sure that what we're using is being used most effectively. And Terence talked a little bit about some of those devices. You know, one of the biggest, he sort of alluded to it, but one of the biggest users of water in a household on a daily basis is your toilet, really. And you've got to ask yourself, do I really need to be flushing all that water, that potable water down? So just, it comes down to a matter of behavior, of the way we approach these things. We have at the back of our mind, do I need to leave that tap running? Do I really need that toilet to be flushing 4.5 gallons of water down every time that I use it? So looking at the way we practice, and in fact, I've got something that I'd like to perhaps suggest to, I know it's a little bit late, but maybe to some of our younger viewers, is that why don't you, in your own house, carry out your own water audit? Have a look at how you're using water on a daily basis. Keep a diary. I mean, that will give you a pretty good indication of, are you using the water in your home effectively and efficiently? If you're not, try thinking of little ways in which you can change your behavior to cut down on that, because it may seem that it's a drop in the ocean, but when you add it up all over time, let me just put it just in contrast. In very rough terms, Barbados, where I live, uses per person around about 200 litres per person per day of water. In contrast, Grenada uses about 165 litres per person per day. So in other words, you're already doing better than Barbados is in that. But we can do better than that. We can look at the way we use our water. We can, and another way is to look at, are we asking ourselves a question, are we polluting our water? What are we flushing away down the sink? You know, some of those chemicals, I mean, you clean a paintbrush, you put some paint thinner on it, and you put that under a running tap. Should we really be doing that sort of thing? Because that's getting into our water supplies. It's by polluting the water supplies, we're actually creating a drought because that water can't be used for a while anyway, because nature does have a way of treating it, but it takes time. So it's about our behavior, our attitudes, that we ourselves have got some agency here. We can make a difference to how much we use. So it's about thinking about we use it, looking at our behaviors. So that's some of the things that on an individual basis we can do. We can do it in our shopping practices. You know, these days we look at products and we could think to ourselves, is this being manufactured responsibly? So there are things that a whole load of actions that we can take in the home, in our practices, in our schools, and in our workplace. So those are just a few things that I think that we as individuals have within our grasp, within our power. And as well, I want to go back again to also encourage those in authority, our politicians, our civil servants, to make sure we should be pushing for that water resources management unit to have been set up yesterday, you know, because that is really, we can't manage what we don't measure. And that one of the responsibilities of a unit like that is going to be to get all the data to make sure that the water we have is being used in the most effective way. So those are just a few ideas.
Right. Any comments you would like to make on what Dr. Everson and Terry spoke of earlier?
I think one of the things, the Water Resources Management Unit that Everson was referring to, there are some examples from around the region that I know that have been looked at, and the best practices from coming out of those countries have been incorporated into what Grenada is doing. I mean, one of the, I think, leading examples of managing water resources within the region is probably Jamaica. I would put them really up there, right on top, as being the ones that have been in the business much longer than anybody else and have developed a lot of strategies to manage their water resources. Unfortunately, there are not that many countries around the Caribbean that have gone that far. Many of them still have, as NOASA is at the moment, the responsibility for water resources management. And in a way, you can't be, you know, the gamekeeper and the poacher at the same time. One of the other things that, just building on what Terence was talking about, was one of the climate change adaptations is to look at the intakes. One of the problems that we get with this variability in stream flows is that if we want to manage that, we need to increase water storage. And that is some of the investment under GCRUIS is looking at the water intake structures so they are better able to cope with the effects of climate change in the future. So just one of those couple of points on what both Everson and Terence were saying.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian. Dr. Everson, G-Crews, will they be assisting with water shortages throughout the dry season?
G-Crews? No.
Yeah.
No, I think really the responsibility for managing our water during the dry season falls on each and every one of us. But a program like this, I think, is so useful because research has shown that the best way to manage your water is to be aware. So, you know, we need to, or people need to be aware of what is likely in the future and the need to make personal sacrifices. So, for example, I remember I was at a workshop yesterday, and this lady from St. Paul's said, you know, since the 1970s, Victoria always has water in the dry season, but St. Paul doesn't have. And I tried to explain the reason why. And then I realized, after explaining, she said, oh, that's the reason. But it's because there was lack of awareness. So I think one of the first things as an individual or as a group of individuals is for us to become more aware of our situation and our potential situations. But there are little things that we can do. You know, for example, we haven't mentioned it here, but rainwater harvesting. You know, we can catch some water when it is possible. And there are little things that I think Adrian spoke about it, allowing the tap to be running while you're washing the dishes and so on. You know, if you, again, the Carriacou example, you know, you had water to wash, you had water to rinse, and you had to save it, right? So probably life is like a cycle. We're probably going to go back to some of that. The simple idea of watering your plants, your flowers. When should you water? Well, the best time to water in the afternoon, not in the morning, because you use less water if you apply the water in the afternoon than in the morning. So there are some little things that we can do, increasing our own storage capacities. If you have 200 gallon, 400 gallon tank, water tank, you know, and many people in the community have, then the impact of the dry season is likely to be less on you as an individual.
Okay, thank you very much. Terry, back to you. And you just heard Everton's, you know, speaking of awareness and how programs and forums like this can be very useful. I remember earlier you spoke when you were making reference to, you know, G-Crews and some of the aspects of this whole organization. Awareness was one of them. Shouldn't G-Crews be initiating forums like these to help raise awareness among our people?
Yes, well, I believe some of that is already being done. I think I mentioned that they have had some collaboration with some of the like service organizations and schools and so forth. I think our population could get involved. I just want to repeat to emphasize here, water conservation measures at the household level is where it all starts. I cannot but help repeat that. The public could support some of the initiatives being taken by the G-Crews project. Something as simple as liking a page on social media. They're active in the various social media platforms. Of course, we're talking here more to the younger generation, but liking a page that helps improve the visibility of a social media page. Submitting ideas. I think the project would like it if members of the public, organizations, community groups, NGOs, and so forth, could reach out to them and give them ideas on, there's some areas where there's some flexibility, and I believe that they would like it if members of the public could reach out to them and give them additional ideas on how the public could become involved and how the awareness could be raised. For example, Godfrey, in my humble opinion, we are just scratching the surface, so to speak, in a one-hour program like this, right? And we are not representatives per se of the G-Cruise project. We did an assignment, as I said, involving aspects and so forth. So, for example, you could look at having an entire program on the G-Cruise project. Yeah, just my thought. So basically, and I can't help before we end, Godfrey. You see this matter of rainwater harvesting. I omitted it earlier. There is an element, I believe it's under component 3, or I believe it's under component 3. No, I believe it's under component 4, where some initial work in fact, Everson was the one that led in our work on the preparedness for under the G-Cruise. It involved mainstreaming of rainwater harvesting in Grenada. So a concept paper was prepared, and again, this is in the pipeline. We can't really get ahead of ourselves or ahead of the project. But the idea is that I know discussions have been held with the board of the Planning and Development Authority, what we know as PPU, Physical Planning and Development Authority, with a view to amending the Grenada Building Code, which is now enshrined in our legislation. Amending that legislation and regulations to require new residential construction to have above a certain cutoff size to include rainwater harvesting and storage going forward, right? And it's not new, it's nothing we're inventing. That is in the legislation of several Northern Caribbean, people like Anguilla, Antigua, and the BVI, and the Bahamas, all have that in their legislation and regulations. So that is something, again, that's likely to be coming down the pipeline that is initiated by the G-Cruise. And finally, there is no reason why our government buildings and our government buildings, any project, right, any public sector project that has a roof, right, going forward, should either be, if it's existing already, can be retrofitted to collect rainwater and have some storage. And certainly going forward, I'm advocating very, very strongly here that government projects themselves should incorporate rainwater harvesting. Rainwater can be used for flushing toilets. It can be used for washing and cleaning and so forth, so that we would minimize the total demand now on the supply from Nawassa, which is largely surface water with a little bit of groundwater. So
Thank you very much. Well, we practically out of time. We've gone over time, but so much to talk about. One quick question, though, before we make our final comments. The challenge fund you mentioned, is it already in effect?
Yes, it is. It is. I don't have all the latest data. I believe it was about 4 or 5 hotels have already done their retrofitting and so forth, and there's several more that are at various stages, but I don't have the latest information on that. But what I can say is, and this is some information I recently got from the project, it is projected that for the tourism sector, right, under the Challenge Fund, it is projected that the participants can save, I believe it's 260,000, it's about 250,000 gallons of water per year. It's about 260,000 gallons of water per year can be saved by just this handful, or maybe a couple dozen. I'm not sure how many participants there would be eventually, but a relatively small number of commercial tourism-oriented participants would be saving 260,000 gallons of water per year, right? So imagine if this could be replicated at the household level.
Yes.
And every household can, even if it's a rain barrel, as they call it, or one of these, 400 or 600 gallon tanks that could be hooked up to a section even of our rainwater, of our roofs, to collect rainwater for whether it's water in your kitchen garden or washing on the yard or whatever. All of these measures are recognized, fully supported, strongly endorsed climate change adaptation measures.
Thank you very much, Terry. Well, gentlemen, we're out of time. I am so thankful for you accepting the invitation to be on the program. It was indeed a pleasure chatting with you. I've learned quite a bit that I wasn't aware of. So I'll tell you what, let me just give each of you 30 seconds quickly to say your goodbyes, starting with Adrian.
Well, thank you very much. I want to leave you with one tip. To save water. Put a bucket in your shower as you shower. You can collect that water and you can use it either on your garden. It's been great being with you, and I wish all of you and the viewers a pleasant good evening.
Thank you very much. Dr. Peters?
Thank you very much, Goddfrey, for inviting me. I want to leave on this note. In Carriacou, recently we refurbished the Bishop's College. Massive building in Carriacou with a culture of rainwater harvesting, but there was no system built. I'll leave it there.
Terry, your final words.
Godfrey, I add my thanks to you for the invitation. It's been my pleasure. My parting words, I would very much like to see the policymakers endorse, accept, amend as necessary, but approve at Cabinet the establishment of the Water Resources Unit and the finalization, the tweaking, the amendment or whatever of the draft legislation and its passage through the Houses of Parliament with the support, what is it called, multi-party, the support of all parties, all of the political parties, in the Houses of Parliament.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Let me just close by saying, just borrowing a line from my opening, according to Manulal, director of the Columbia Water Center, most of the climate change impacts come down to water. So when people speak about the climate change affecting agricultural output, sea level rise, wildfires, extreme weather events, it is essentially a water story. Thank you very much for viewing. Join us next Wednesday. We look at the climate change impacts on health. Until then, have a good night. All the best.
Good night.
Solar Vision is the champion. We lighten up the whole Caribbean. Solar Vision is the champion. We lighten the whole Caribbean. The ultimate solution to get rid of pollution. We going green to be healthy. Going green for security. Going green for prosperity. Going green with Solar Vision. We going green.
Available at Grenada Trade Center, Montrouge, St. George. For more information, call 444-5291 or 404-9012.
Whether you're shopping for hardware, building materials, and appliances, Hubbard's Building Supplies at Grandans is the place to shop. With improved facilities